Have you ever just wondered what really makes people tick at work? Why some teams just click and others, well, they just clash? Or why some companies feel incredible to work for, while others just don't? Well, today, we're decoding the science of people at work. We're going to pull back the curtain on how human behavior works in the workplace, and trust me, what we find might just surprise you.
Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Managing people, working in teams, isn't that all just common sense? It's a totally fair question, and it's one we hear all the time. But the simple answer? Nope. And today we're going to see exactly why.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with what organizational behavior, or OB for short, actually is. Then, we'll look at how the workplace itself is just radically changing. After that, we'll dive into the building blocks of why people do what they do before we apply it all to this really fascinating case study on leading remote teams. You're definitely going to want to stick around for that. And finally, we'll bring it all together to see why this stuff matters now more than ever.
All right, so let's dive right into our first section. What exactly is organizational behavior?
So what is OB really? Well, at its core, it's the systematic study and application of knowledge about how people act within organizations. And that word systematic, that's the key. It's what separates OB from just, intuition or a gut feeling. It's about using actual research and data to understand and predict human behavior at work, not just guessing.
And this is a great way to picture how OB looks at the workplace. It's not just one thing, it's this multi-layered analysis. It starts right at the center with the individual, our personalities or motivations. Then it expands out to the group level, how teams talk to each other and make decisions. And finally, it zooms all the way out to the organizational level to look at big picture stuff like company culture and structure. And each level is constantly influencing the others.
To break it down even further, we can pretty much split the field in two. You've got micro-OB, which is all about the psychology of individuals and small groups. And then there's macro-OB, which takes that much wider view, looking at the whole organization and how it fits into the world around it.
Okay, let's move on, because understanding behavior is one thing, but the place where it all happens, the workplace itself, is changing faster than ever before.
This quote just nails one of the biggest drivers of that change: technology. As author Thomas Friedman pointed out years ago, the internet has basically flattened the world. Information, ideas, and even competition now move instantly across the globe. This isn't just some tech trend. It fundamentally reshapes how companies have to operate.
And of course, this whole flattened world idea has come right into our living rooms. The massive rise of remote and hybrid work, which got a huge push from the pandemic, has completely rewritten our daily routines. We're more connected by our screens than ever. But that also creates brand new challenges for how we work together and, honestly, how we feel.
And here's the human side of all this change. This statistic is pretty staggering when you think about it. With all this technological progress, less than 15% of employees actually feel strongly energized by their work. That highlights a massive gap, and it brings up a really important question. How do we start to fix this?
Which brings us right to our third section. If we want to re-energize the workplace, we've got to start with the fundamental building blocks of behavior, the individual.
So OB gives us a great framework for this. It shows how our behavior at work is this really complex mix of how we see the world, our core values, and our overall attitudes. But a huge piece of this puzzle is our personality, those stable patterns in how we think, feel, and act. A popular way to frame this is using the big 5 traits. That's openness to new experiences, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, which is basically how we handle stress.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. It has a huge real-world impact. Of those 5 traits we just talked about, research consistently shows that conscientiousness is the #1 thing recruiters are looking for. So why is that? Because it's the single best predictor of job performance. People who are high in conscientiousness, they tend to be organized, dependable, and really goal-oriented. All things that are pretty valuable in almost any job you can think of.
This quote, it's so simple, but so powerful. It comes from the human relations movement, which was this early, major shift in management thinking. It moved the focus from just pure efficiency to the social needs of employees. It's this timeless reminder that no matter how much tech or process you have, an organization is, at the end of the day, a collection of people. Their needs and their relationships are what truly create the culture.
Okay, so let's put all of this together and look at a very specific and super relevant case study, what it means to lead in this new, remote-first world.
So, Researchers in a study from Frontiers in Psychology wanted to look at a specific leadership style. They called it positive leadership. Now, this isn't just about being a happy person. It's about a specific set of behaviors, things like actively praising good work, personally thanking people for their effort, and cheering them up. It's about being intentional in creating positive moments. And they wanted to see how this leadership style affected something they called employee vigor. That's a great term, isn't it? It's more than just being satisfied. It's that feeling of having physical strength, emotional energy, and just feeling mentally sharp at work. It's exactly that energized feeling we saw was missing for so many people earlier.
So, what did they find? Well, the study confirmed that, yeah, positive leadership leads to more employee vigor. But here's the absolute key insight for today's world. That effect was way stronger for employees who worked from home. The more remote the work, the more vital this kind of leadership became.
I love this quote from the study because it paints such a vivid picture. For remote workers who can easily feel isolated or disconnected, these small positive acts from a leader aren't just, nice to haves. They can literally be like rays of sunlight, actively cutting through the gloom and keeping people feeling connected and energized.
So let's bring it all home. In this world of remote work, global teams, and constant change, understanding organizational behavior has really shifted from being a soft skill to being an absolutely essential tool for success. And the payoff for getting this right is huge. When organizations use these OB principles to create positive work attitudes like job satisfaction and real commitment, the results are tangible. You see better performance, more loyalty, people call in sick less, and they're much, much less likely to quit.
And this really brings us to the most important takeaway of all. Employee well-being isn't just a fun perk or some box you check for HR. It is a core strategic driver of how effective an organization can be. Happy, energized, and supported people simply do better work, and that builds a stronger, more successful company.
We've seen that an organization is this complex system of people, groups, and structures. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In your own workplace, or your school, or even your team, what's one small thing you could change based on what we've talked about today to make that whole system work just a little bit better?